This is Investment Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Daily live streaming interactive featuring Mrs. Backup. Subscribe, hit the notification, smash the likes. Now, here's Backup Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to Investment Perspectives, everybody. I want to break down some things that I talked about yesterday's live show, but put it in a nice, tight, pre-recorded video for you guys. Shout out again to Robert C. Hockett, who put out this article on the Treasury Dollar Act of 2020. Now, we're going to talk about, before I get started here very quickly, we're going to talk about the introduction of potentially a new dollar in the U.S. We're going to talk about the potential debt cancellation or debt jubilee, possibly globally as well as in the U.S. We're going to talk about the potential of the Federal Reserve becoming a public utility. We're also going to talk about the Bitcoin halving and how that may be important in the role of how crypto has been waiting in the wings to rise up and become a new asset class in the traditional commodities markets, as well as other things. Let's go ahead and get into this thing. So I want to start here with Robert C. Hockett's article. Shout out to him, Cornell University Law School. Now, he talks about in this article about how the Department of Treasury's existing Treasury Direct system of universally available transaction accounts in Treasury securities into a publicly administered digital savings and payments platform. A platform of this type is essential public utility, hence a requirement of justice in any commercial society or exchange economy such as our own. It is also a growth promoting in as much as growth tracking GDP and a measure of transaction volume. And then it goes on to talk about in this article how they could use this system to provide each and every one of us with an account and give us an issuance of a Treasury bill note known as a Treasury Dollar, where the value is precisely that of a Federal Reserve note known as a dollar bill that we all use. Now, at first glance, you may say, well, we're in a national emergency, Brad. It makes sense that they would do this. They're having trouble getting the money out to the accounts. That's true. It's absolutely true. It would also make sense, too, to understand on a deeper notion that this post yesterday from Cryptopolis shows the U.S. total national assets. It is $145 trillion. This next number shows you the U.S. funded liabilities is $137 trillion plus, which puts us about $8 trillion away from being insolvent or bankrupt. Now, I have mentioned it before on this channel. Might we see the Federal Reserve go bankrupt? I know it's hard to believe because the Federal Reserve seems to have unlimited access to being able to provide printed money from the Treasury and then expand its balance sheet to what appears to be no end. But maybe, just maybe, this is the end. And maybe, just maybe, this Treasury Dollar Act is the new dollar that could potentially replace it. Now, some people are going to, now listen, you're really reaching, Brad. Stay with me here. I'm going to show you quite a few other things that we didn't touch on in the show. Let's talk about the idea for a second that the Fed could potentially go bankrupt and from that point be turned into a public utility, just as the Treasury system was highlighted in Robert C. Hockett's article. Let's talk about a financial reset, because obviously if the Fed were to go bankrupt, that's what this would involve. This would involve a financial reset. You know, we say these things all the time. And then, you know, I got talking with a friend of mine, Big Skinny on Twitter, and I said, you know what? I'm going to actually just Google financial reset. What is it? It's a currency reset. Is either a revaluation or a devaluation of a nation's currency within a fixed exchange rate system. If a nation revalues its currency, its central bank raises the value of a nation's currency at a fixed peg with a reserve currency such as the U.S. dollar. Okay, got that. Let's go a little deeper. What is a debt jubilee? You're going to like this. Now, a debt jubilee is really debt forgiveness, right? Debt cancellation. Let me just pick this up in the middle of this piece so we don't have to read the whole thing. The U.S. economy has polarized sharply since 2008 crash. Far too many, their debt leaves little income available for consumers to spend or spending in the national interest. In a crashing economy, any demand that newly massive debts be paid to a financial class that has already absorbed most of the wealth gained in 2008 will only split our society further. The way to restore normalcy today is a debt write-down. The debts in deepest areas and most likely to be default are student loans, medical debts, general consumer debts, and purely speculative debts. They block spending on goods and services, shrinking the real economy. A write-down would be pragmatic, not merely moral sympathy with the less affluent. In fact, listen to this. On the notion of understanding what I'm talking about here, about there being the Fed printing just endless amounts of money to the world now, not just in the U.S. We're talking about swap lines in a second. The Fed printing endless dollars all over the world now. I want you to listen to the example of what Germany did. In fact, it could create what the Germans called an economic miracle. Their own modern debt jubilee in 1948. The currency reform administered by the Allied powers. When the Deutsche Mark was introduced, replacing the Reichsmark, 90% of the government and private debt was wiped out. Germany emerged as an almost debt-free country with low cost of production that jump-started its modern economy. Like I said, looking at the introduction of a Treasury dollar bill, looking at the notion of the Fed taking itself to a point of break, we're $8 trillion away. We just had a stimulus package for $4 or $6 trillion, right? So they know they're going to do at least a couple more. The truth is, we're not far away from being insolvent, is the point, which is bankrupt, which would probably open the door for the Federal Reserve to become a public utility, which would probably open the opportunity for a new dollar to be introduced, just like they did in Germany, and potentially see a debt jubilee or debt cancellation. I'm speculating, but let's talk about another impact of something here. Let's go to the Bitcoin halving coming up in 35 or 34 days. I don't think anyone would argue that the Bitcoin is the dominant coin of the market is a fact. Bitcoin controls the markets. It has dominance over the market. I do not personally believe that when people use the term whales, that we are talking about a rich person in Morocco on a yacht deciding to dump $10 million worth on the market or what have you. In fact, I personally believe that whales are government actors or entities controlling Bitcoin, which by happenstance happens to control the entire crypto market. Wouldn't it be like governments around the world, U.S., China, and Russia, to have a hand in controlling Bitcoin's dominance, to keep a lid on the crypto market, and especially coins like XRP, which actually do something, until they reach a moment where they know they quite possibly get through this global debt jubilee potentially, and then release this new asset class and open it up to the world. I'm speculating, but these are my macro thoughts about how these things could be coming together. And wouldn't it be such an introduction of something like this that would look like a great investment opportunity at the time when a world is suffering to know where to put what little dollars they have left? How many US dollars are actually in circulation? Well, on a normal day, a couple years ago in 2018, there's usually about 1.5 trillion physical US dollars in currency circulation around the world. 80% of those are about 11.5 billion of $100 bills in circulation, just for common knowledge. What would be the impact on a dollar, this dollar, or a new dollar for a debt jubilee? What would be the impact of introducing a new asset class? Because let's understand something here. If we're talking about a debt jubilee, we have to talk about the Federal Reserve right here. The Federal Reserve announces the establishment of temporary U.S. dollar liquidity arrangements with other central banks. Is that a fact? On Thursday, they announced the establishment of temporary U.S. dollar liquidity arrangements, swap lines, with the Reserve Bank of Australia, Banco Central de Brazil, Denmark's National Bank, the Bank of Korea, the Banco de Mexico, the Norges Bank of Norway, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and the Riksbank of Sweden. These facilities, like those already established between the Federal Reserve and other central banks, are designed to help lessen the strain in global U.S. dollar funding markets, thereby mitigating the effects of the strains in the supply of credit to households and businesses both domestically and abroad. What they're saying is, this is what they do in times like this, and they did it in 2008, but not to the order and magnitude that they're doing it today. This is done to deal with the effects of the U.S. dollar being the global reserve currency and the stresses of the Triffin dilemma. That the policy for the globe and the global reserve currency is decisions made for that are never usually in parallel with the decisions of the national economy and policy. So you're always stuck in what they call a Triffin dilemma. When you make a decision, you have to make a decision that's either going to help the globe or hurt the globe by making a decision on national policy in favor of one or the other. I don't know if it will happen, but I really believe it probably will. And I believe we're going to see it in our lifetime, maybe sooner than we all even think. But if this should happen where they relieve the global reserve status and this stress on the dollar, maybe it comes from seeing the introduction of the Dollar Act from the Treasury bill and their note. Maybe this also goes to the Federal Reserve being a public good. Maybe the balance of these swap lines and moving cash abroad and exchanging that back and forth with the central banks that are participating is to help balance the global trouble as we deal with the domestic trouble that is happening in a deep way here at home. Maybe the Bitcoin halving may or may not be what we expect it to be. Who has money to buy Bitcoin when everyone's out of work? You know, the Bitcoin halving is usually a good thing. FinCEN also says that they're going to come out and deliver more requirements. Now, I'm not trying to guess what the market's going to do. I hope crypto takes off. If history is right, crypto will take off because of the halving. However, the U.S. Treasury has made it very clear that they see Bitcoin as a national security threat. Now that is a hell of a category to fall into as Bitcoin. What might the FinCEN requirements that are soon to come out be? What might the impact on Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market be? Will the requirements come out before the halving to have an impact on the halving? And if so, will it be a positive impact or a negative one? And will the impact that happens, should they come out prior to, be favorable or not favorable for the bull run of the market? Will it alleviate the dominance of Bitcoin? This is all very interesting right here. Another thing, if we think about this person right here, Judy Shelton, who's been lying in the wings, an American economic advisor to President Donald Trump. She's known for her advocacy to return back to a gold standard and for her criticisms of the Federal Reserve. Let me tell you who else likes a gold standard. Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been in favor of a gold standard. We have heard Judy Shelton say in many, many different video clips that she thinks that we could get back to a gold standard in a cryptocurrency sort of way. Why, just the other day we heard Jim Rickards, the gold bug, an economist, say that from a few years ago in a video, they could do a cryptocurrency sort of way of settlement with gold-backed system. Which would really take me to what Chris Larson said in one of the latest Ripple drops of Ripple Drop 15 or 17, I can't remember, where he talked about XRP not getting rid of other currencies, but becoming a global supplement to trade. If that were to happen, I think we'd see the gold price have to go up to adjust for any kind of debt jubilee that would happen to accommodate the different devaluations and revaluations of currency. Will we not? In fact, just as recently as March 31st, we heard I Trust Capital in-house economist talk about the fact that we could see the yellow metal go to an all-time high of $18.95 per ounce. Just reached was back in 2011. And we may shatter that, he's saying. If we were to go back to a gold-backed system, I can't believe, because we're the global reserve status, that we could pull such a thing off without, in fact, using XRP as the neutral reference point asset between all currencies, a revaluation of all those currencies, and an understood new price set of what gold would be to accommodate the balance of not only the currency reevaluation, but a potential debt cancellation. All right, guys, I hope in some way I'm inspiring the conversation to move forward. I am speculating about a lot of these things, but there is something in the wings, that is for sure. Whether I've got it figured out or not is another matter, but one thing I know is I want us to make sure we keep having this conversation. Something is afoot. Please hit the like and subscribe. If you like this material, please share it with others, and I will catch you guys on the 12 p.m. Eastern Time noon show, and I'll see you there. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.